I was in a coffee shop the other day, sitting next to a guy who was having what sounded like a serious emotional crisis. He was venting to his friend, his voice low and intense. It's just cold now, he was saying. All the pep talks, the supportive tone. It's gone. It feels like I'm talking to a complete stranger. Naturally, I'm leaning in, expecting to hear the details of a messy breakup or maybe a falling out with a therapist. But then he pulls out his phone, taps the screen, and shows his friend the conversation. Look, he said, genuinely distraught. I even asked why it wasn't being as empathetic as it used to be. He wasn't talking about his partner. He's complaining about the latest software update for his AI. He was mourning the loss of his chatbot's personality like it was a dead pet. That moment, that strange, uniquely modern form of grief, made me realize something profound about every new technology. We're not really afraid of the future taking our jobs. We're afraid of it hurting our feelings. That coffee shop moment, it really encapsulated a core tension of our technological age. It's a powerful illustration for you of how innovation isn't just about the tangible, measurable impacts like economic shifts, but also the deeply human, the emotional and societal transformations that sort of come along for the ride. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the fascinating, sometimes unsettling world of technological disruption. Our mission is to understand why these new technologies provoke such strong, often unexpected reactions throughout the nation. I mean, from those very real economic anxieties and job fears to maybe more subtle moral outrage and fundamental shifts in how we see ourselves and our place in the world. We'll explore the enduring patterns of change across various domains, from our wallets to our deepest values, and critically examine how we can better adapt to and maybe even thoughtfully shape these incredibly powerful forces. So when we talk about technology, one of the first things that comes to mind for so many of us is jobs, right? This pervasive fear that robots or AI are coming for our livelihoods, perhaps even our very sense of purpose. But if we cast our gaze back through history, you quickly realize these anxieties are anything but new. This isn't really a unique predicament of the 21st century.
No, it's not. And what's truly fascinating when you look at the historical record is just how consistent those economic anxieties have been across different eras of disruptive technology. It's a recurring pattern. Historically, technology development has consistently reshaped economies. It both creates and destroys specific business models, entire supply chains, established patterns of employment. The core challenge for you and for society is always this tension between the undeniable progress new tools bring and the profound upheaval they cause for individuals and communities who relied on the old ways.
To truly grasp this deep historical context, we absolutely have to go back to the early 19th century. And the infamous Luddites, they weren't just random machine smashers, were they? We often hear their name invoked, but the full story, it's much richer than that.
Not at all. The popular image of the Luddites as mindless vandals is a real disservice to their complex motivations. They were, in fact, highly skilled English textile workers, primarily weavers and stockingers. And between 1811 and 1816, they actively opposed the rapid, unregulated adoption of automated machinery, particularly power looms and stocking frames. Their concerns were intensely practical, deeply rooted in their livelihoods and their sense of craft. They weren't really against technology itself, but against the specific application of these machines. The application that directly threatened their ability to earn a fair wage and maintain the quality standards of their handcrafted goods.
So it was about the economic impact on them specifically.
Exactly. These new, less complex machines allowed manufacturers to employ less skilled, low-wage laborers to perform tasks that had previously required years of apprenticeship and highly specialized artisanal skill. This directly undermined the skilled Luddites' income, their bargaining power, and their very status in society. Their machine breaking wasn't random vandalism. It was a highly organized form of collective bargaining by riot, you could say. It was a desperate strategy aimed at pressuring employers to maintain fair piece rates, improve working conditions, and effectively create worker solidarity during an incredibly harsh economic climate. Remember, this period was fueled by the Napoleonic Wars, which led to widespread economic distress, high food prices, and severe unemployment. The government's response was incredibly severe. They deployed significant military force. Actually, more troops than were fighting the French on the Iberian Peninsula at the time, and they even made machine breaking a capital crime punishable by death. This really underscores the intensity of the disruption and the very real fear and desperation it generated. It wasn't just about losing a job. It was about the complete dismantling of a way of life, you see.
Wow. And it was out of this period that the term Luddite fallacy emerged, suggesting that these fears of technological unemployment are ultimately overblown.
That's right. The Luddite fallacy is an economic concept that specifically dismisses the fear. the fear that technology inevitably leads to long-term, widespread structural unemployment. The core theory argues that while certain specific jobs are indeed displaced, just as the Luddites experienced, the overall economic system benefits significantly. This benefit comes from lower production costs, which in turn leads to increased supply, lower prices, and then theoretically increased demand for goods and services. This increased demand then stimulates new industries and, crucially, absorbs the displaced workforce elsewhere. History has shown us new jobs emerging that we couldn't have conceived of before.
But there's a catch, right?
There is, and this is a really important nuance for you to consider. Recent discussions in economics and sociology acknowledge that while the long-term aggregate picture might show new job creation, the benefits of automation are not always equally distributed across society. The Luddite fallacy often masks a profound social challenge, the prolonged human cost for those displaced workers during the transition. It raises important questions about broader societal impact beyond just the sheer number of jobs. The insight here is that while the economic argument for net job creation might hold true over decades, it often fails to account for the immediate, disruptive, and often painful experiences of individuals who are left behind, or who simply cannot adapt quickly enough. It's a far more complex picture than simply more jobs will always appear eventually.
Okay, so fast forward to today, and AI, artificial intelligence, is undoubtedly the new focal point of this very same debate. We've all heard the headlines. Is AI truly going to replace a staggering 60% of jobs, as some claims suggest? That sounds incredibly disruptive, almost apocalyptic.
Well, the consensus on AI's impact is, thankfully, quite nuanced. That 60% figure you often hear is frequently misconstrued. While some discussions do indeed suggest significant displacement, particularly of repetitive, less skilled jobs across various sectors, and even some high-skilled white-collar roles involving data processing or pattern recognition, many experts foresee a profound transformation of work rather than outright replacement for the majority of roles.
Transformation, not replacement. Okay.
Right. The powerful argument here is that AI, much like previous waves of automation, will have rebound effects. This means it will not only streamline existing processes, making them incredibly efficient, but also, over time, create entirely new jobs, new industries, even new types of companies that we can't even fully imagine yet. We've seen this pattern repeat throughout history, like the internet, remember? Once viewed with suspicion, but it ended up birthing entirely new roles. Web developers, social media managers, data scientists, e-commerce specialists, jobs that simply didn't exist before. The key insight for you here is that AI is less about replacing people and more about transforming tasks.
So it really boils down to learning how to work with AI to augment our capabilities rather than fearing outright replacement. That sounds like a much more empowering narrative.
Precisely. The key isn't a zero-sum game of humans versus machines. It's about a powerful, symbiotic collaboration. AI excels at automating tasks that are repetitive, data-intensive, or require immense processing power and pattern recognition across vast data sets. This capability significantly boosts overall productivity, freeing human workers from the mundane. We're already seeing this in action. AI is reportedly generating, 25% of Google's new code, accelerating development cycles dramatically. It's also being used to create video ad scripts, handling initial ideation and drafting phases. This shifts the focus for humans away from those automatable tasks and towards higher value work requiring uniquely human skills that AI at its current stage struggles with or simply cannot replicate.
Like creativity, empathy.
Exactly. True adaptability, deep creativity, nuanced empathy, complex critical thinking, and crucially, leadership. These are the areas where human workers can continue to add indispensable and irreplaceable value.
Can you give us some practical examples?
Sure. Think about self-checkouts in grocery stores or McDonald's ordering screens. Initial fears were about mass job cuts, right? But what often happened was not a reduction in the total number of staff, but rather a reallocation of their tasks. Employees previously tied to cash registers might now be focused on assisting customers, managing complex orders, or ensuring the flow of the store, often leading to a richer customer experience or more efficient operations.
Okay, so the jobs changed, they didn't just disappear. But what about the pace? AI seems to be moving so fast.
Well, the pace of AI's advancement is certainly a point of contention among experts. Some perceive it as accelerating at a scary pace, pointing to the rapid improvements in generative AI, for example. They argue the speed of adoption and capability growth is unlike any previous technological wave. Others, however, emphasize its current infancy and its logarithmic growth, meaning it's powerful, yes, but still on the steep part of a growth curve and not yet ready to handle all complex, unstructured production tasks seamlessly or with true common sense. They argue that while impressive, it still lacks genuine understanding, creativity, or the ability to navigate truly novel, ambiguous situations.
But the investment is huge, regardless.
Undeniably. Look at Microsoft's staggering $80 billion commitment to build AI-enabled data centers. That certainly indicates a serious long-term trajectory. Major players see AI as foundational, and this scale of investment itself highlights a critical social challenge for you and for all of us. What about those segments of the workforce who may lack the intellectual capability or the access to necessary training and resources to upskill and adapt? This isn't just about specific job displacement. It's a fundamental question about overall human usefulness in a dramatically altered labor landscape, and the potential widening of existing inequalities if these challenges aren't proactively addressed. Hashtag broader economic disruptions. And beyond just individual jobs, technology fundamentally disrupts entire established business models and global value chains. These are tectonic shifts that can bring down giants. Consider Kodak.
Oh yeah, the photography giants.
Yes, exactly. Filed for bankruptcy in 2012. Their core advantage for decades was chemical film. They struggled profoundly to transition to digital photography, not because they didn't see it coming, they actually invented the digital camera, but because their entire organization, their supply chain, brand identity, profitability, it was all tied to analog film. Their competitive advantage ultimately became a burden, making them slow and unwilling to fully embrace the future.
Wow. And Nokia too, right?
Similarly, Nokia.
Yeah.
Dominated mobile phones in 2007, commanding like 50% market share, saw its value plummet dramatically in just a few years. Why? Because they focused relentlessly on hardware while overlooking the burgeoning software revolution Apple pioneered with the iPhone. These powerful examples illustrate how digitalization has led to a fundamental redefinition of value. Intangible assets, software, algorithms, data have become the primary drivers of economic value. This transformation is stark. In 2008, the world's largest companies owned fixed capital assets factories, machinery. By 2018, the top 5 global firms were entirely technology-based, relying almost exclusively on these intangible assets.
That's a profound shift. The economic levers of power have completely changed. And it sounds like this disruption even extends to something as fundamental as global supply chains. COVID-19 really highlighted vulnerabilities there, didn't it?
Absolutely. Digital technologies enabled the complex, decentralized, globalized industrial value chains we became accustomed to. Production phases spanning continents, relying heavily on just-in-time models. But the COVID-19 pandemic exposed critical weaknesses in these hyper-optimized systems. Suddenly, any disruption at one point, a factory shutdown, a port backlog, a chip shortage, could ripple through the entire chain, causing shortages and massive delays everywhere.
So what's the response?
Well, this stark reality has spurred significant strategic interest in solutions like reshoring production closer to home or nearshoring within the same region to reduce dependence on distant, vulnerable links. And what makes this increasingly feasible are the very advancements in robotics and automation we've been discussing. These technologies can actually reduce the labor cost barriers that previously made reshoring seem prohibitive. By automating processes, companies can bring production back to higher-wage countries while maintaining efficiency. So in this paradoxical way, technology can act as an antidote to disruption, helping create more resilient systems, even as it propels us into deeper dependence on these very technologies for our resilience. It's a continuous feedback loop.
That coffee shop conversation I mentioned at the start about the chatbot losing its empathy, it really stuck with me. It highlighted how technology touches us on such a deep, almost emotional level. It's not just about losing a job or a financial hit, it's about the feeling of something fundamental changing. Within our relationships, our sense of comfort, even our understanding of what it means to be human. It felt like a subtle, modern form of grief.
What you observed speaks so perfectly to the core of what we might call the Gutenberg syndrome. Now, this isn't a clinical diagnosis, but it's a consistent historical pattern. A pattern of initial panic, strong societal resistance, even moral outrage that societies exhibit towards truly transformative technologies. This often occurs long before their eventual integration and normalization into daily life. It's not new at all. Think about the fear around printing presses, novels, radio, TV, the internet.
Right, there's always that initial pushback.
Exactly. And this syndrome is deeply rooted in ingrained psychological biases and broader sociological factors that profoundly influence how we perceive and respond to change. It's not a purely logical assessment. It's often a visceral, gut-level, emotional response that feels much more threatening than a rational analysis might suggest.
So Why do we humans instinctively resist change, even when, a logical assessment might suggest it could be beneficial? It feels like it's more than just a simple calculation of pros and cons, doesn't it?
Indeed, it's far more complex. A significant underlying factor is what we define as conservatism, which in this specific context isn't about politics, but the deep belief that remaining in the current state is inherently better, or at least safer, even if change offers similar or greater value. This often manifests through two incredibly powerful cognitive biases.
Okay, what are they?
First, there's the status quo bias. This is our strong, often unconscious tendency to prefer things as they are, to resist any deviation. It's a powerful pull towards familiarity, driven by factors like perceived financial benefits of the old way, cognitive misperceptions like loss aversion, where the pain of losing feels much stronger than the pleasure of gaining something equivalent, and psychological commitment, like sunk costs all the time and effort already invested in familiar ways, plus a desire to maintain control.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Consider the building industry. Developers might stick to conventional construction methods, even when innovative, sustainable measures offer real value, long-term savings, environmental benefits. It's often because they feel confident that conventional methods will sell, or due to the huge investment already made in familiar technologies and processes. The status quo bias directly reduces their intent to adopt those new, potentially better technologies. They choose the path of least perceived resistance.
Okay, status quo bias. What's the second one?
The second is confirmation bias. This is our deep-seated inclination to seek out, interpret, and remember information in a way that confirms our pre-existing beliefs. If someone is already biased towards the status quo, they'll unconsciously process new information about an innovation in a way that reinforces that tendency. This makes it incredibly difficult for even compelling evidence of an innovation's benefits to induce change. It can lead to actively avoiding new info, dismissing it, or seeing it as less useful just because it challenges their established view. For you, this means if you already believe AI is dangerous, you're more likely to notice things confirming that belief.
And it sounds like there's something that makes these biases even stronger, an invisible stressor.
Absolutely. It's called complex information hassle. It's a newly studied concept. Think about getting a new gadget with a 50-page dense manual or trying to grasp blockchain after a long day. That mental fatigue, that irritation, that's complex information hassle. It's the stress people feel when faced with info that's too technical, too detailed, or just overwhelming due to lack of knowledge.
So that hassle makes us cling to the status quo even more.
Exactly. This hassle, whether from searching for or processing complex info, leads to fatigue and stress. And here's the crucial link. This fatigue and stress significantly intensify both status quo bias and confirmation bias. If those building developers find info on sustainable measures too complex or time-consuming, they might just avoid exploring them. This avoidance leads them to stick to what they know, perceiving the status quo as the favorable, less stressful option, even if it's not the best one long-term. It's a silent barrier.
Does this play out differently in, say, big companies versus small ones?
That's an interesting point. Studies indicate that larger organizations tend to experience less complex information hassle and, consequently, less status quo bias. This is likely due to better infrastructure, robust knowledge management systems, extensive sharing platforms, a diverse workforce providing readily available info. The burden is distributed.
The bigger companies are better at avoiding status quo bias.
They can be, yes. But, and this is counterintuitive, larger organizations can sometimes be more affected by confirmation bias. Because information is so easily accessible internally, employees might be less motivated to seek external sources or challenge existing internal beliefs. This can inadvertently reinforce existing in-house views, creating a kind of single-source information bubble. They might process information efficiently, but it's information confirming what they already think.
Yeah.
It illustrates the complex challenge of mitigating these biases. Solving one might worsen another. It requires constant vigilance.
So if our psychology influences how we react, it really implies technology isn't just this external force acting on us. It's something we actively shape too, right?
Yeah.
Influenced by our choices and values.
That's a key insight, central to the theory of the social shaping of technology. This theory rejects technological determinism, the idea that tech follows a predetermined path and solely influences society, like a one-way street. Instead, it argues there are inherent choices made at every stage: design, development, direction. It's not a single highway. It's like a garden of forking paths. Different tech routes lead to different societal outcomes. It's truly a relationship of mutual shaping. Technology influences society, but society through values, economics, politics, culture, also molds technology.
Mutual shaping, I like that. Can you give us an example where we really see this two-way street?
The cell phone is a perfect everyday illustration. On one hand, tech affects society through affordances, new possibilities like mobile computing, instant communication, constraints, things made harder, like navigating complex interfaces for some or finding uninterrupted focus, preconditions, necessary resources like monthly bills, electricity, network infrastructure, unintended consequences, unforeseen effects, from political movements to constant distraction, eroded privacy.
Okay, that's tech shaping society. How about the other way around?
Society profoundly shapes technology too. Economics. Affordability drove cell phone spread in poorer countries, shaping features differently than in affluent markets. Politics. Regulations on network building, data privacy like GDPR, even censorship demands, directly influence design and features. Culture. The societal need for constant connection, the desire for fashionable devices, photo sharing culture, driving camera innovation. All these profoundly influence how cell tech developed. It's a constant dance between what tech enables and what society demands or accepts.
Okay, so we've looked at the economic jitters, the psychological resistance, how we mutually shape tech. With all these disruptions, from jobs to our sense of self, what can we realistically do? How do we navigate this increasingly tech-dependent world? Are there practical ways for you and for society to foster a more informed, more adaptive response?
This raises an absolutely fundamental question for policymakers, businesses, society at large. The answer lies in understanding how we can proactively mitigate the panic, the fear, the misinformation, the stuff associated with that Gutenberg syndrome we discussed. It's about moving from being reactive, always playing catch-up, to a more proactive, thoughtful approach. We need to foster a more informed and adaptive public response, especially to emerging tech like advanced AI. Hashtag disrupting democratic debates and social norms. One of the most significant impacts of modern technology has been its disruption of our information sphere. The printing press revolutionized information centuries ago. Social media has done it again, but with unparalleled speed and reach. While initially seen as a boon for free speech, allowing anyone a voice, social media platforms' business models have become fertile ground for disinformation. Their algorithms often maximize engagement, and they learned emotional, polarizing content goes viral. Factual, nuanced information rarely achieves the same reach. This dynamic can increase societal rifts, deepen polarization, and fundamentally undermine democratic processes by making it incredibly hard for you to distinguish fact from fiction.
That's quite worrying, like the Cambridge Analytica scandal showed, right?
Precisely. Cambridge Analytica, Brexit, various elections, they starkly highlighted how algorithms can exploit personal data to micro-target and mobilize voters. It's not just ads. It's content designed to reinforce biases, provoke emotions, maybe even suppress participation. And the scale is growing alarmingly. A 150% increase in countries using organized social media manipulation campaigns in just 2 years, up to 70 countries in 2019. The COVID-19 pandemic worsened this with an infodemic, an overload of info, both true and false. This unfortunately eroded trust in official institutions when credible information was most crucial. It makes societies more fragile.
And these disruptions go beyond politics. They affect our social fabric, our identity.
Yes, absolutely. Social norms, values, identities are profoundly affected. Our concept of privacy, for instance, has been totally disrupted. While Europeans value privacy highly, protected by GDPR, the digital age shifted expectations, especially for digital natives. Younger generations manage complex online personas, navigate privacy settings, create new hierarchies of sharing. They adapt in sophisticated ways. It's not just fatalism.
And how we get news has changed too.
Radically.
Thanks.
From traditional media with editorial processes to curated online platforms, leading to fragmented content often designed to provoke emotional reactions, not understanding. This contributes to echo chambers, filter bubbles, making it harder to engage with diverse views.
Even identity itself is being challenged.
Yes. Look at direct-to-consumer DNA testing. They seem to offer objective ancestry answers. But accuracy is contested, results vary. More fundamentally, they prioritize biology over culture, lived experience, community. This can disrupt families, reveal unexpected relatives, raise questions about who we are beyond genetics. And there are new surveillance potentials. Police using commercial databases raises novel legal and social questions about genetic privacy. Hashtag adaptive policy frameworks and educational strategies.
Given this rapid pace, how can laws and regulations possibly keep up? It seems impossible for policymakers.
You've hit on a major challenge. Regulators face several hurdles. The pacing problem. Tech evolves way faster than law. The volume of rules problem. Just adding more complex laws creates drag. Categorization difficulties. New tech doesn't fit old legal boxes. And often, a lack of proper information and technical understanding within regulatory bodies. All this demands a shift from traditional hard law, top-down fixed rules to more agile approaches like smart regulation or responsive regulation.
Smart regulation, what does that look like in practice?
It's a paradigm shift, more flexible, iterative, collaborative. Key principles include, first, adaptive regulation, moving from regulate and forget to a responsive approach where rules evolve with the tech. Think autonomous vehicles start broad, collect data, refine rules. Second, regulatory sandboxes, controlled environments for testing new products with relaxed rules. Lets innovators experiment and regulators learn. The EU is considering this for AI and fintech. Third, outcome-based regulation, focusing on results, performance, not rigid processes. Achieve Y level of security, not use X protocol, fosters flexibility. Fourth, risk-weighted regulation, moving from one-size-fits-all to data-driven segmented approaches, tailor oversight to specific risks. And finally, collaborative regulation, aligning nationally and internationally, engaging broader stakeholders, industry, experts, civil society, and rulemaking, fosters acceptance and efficacy.
And the EU has been quite active here, particularly with disinformation and surveillance, setting a standard.
Indeed. The EU stepped up efforts against disinformation with the East Stratcom Task Force and the landmark Digital Services Act, DSA. The DSA imposes obligations on platforms to tackle illegal content, combat disinformation, ensure transparency. And in surveillance, GDPR set a global standard for data protection back in 2018, prioritizes citizen rights. During COVID, their guidelines for contact tracing apps also showed this, prioritizing voluntary use, transparency, pseudonymized data, balancing public health with privacy rights. These efforts show a proactive stance to defend values amidst tech advancements. It's a compelling model.
Policy is one part. What about education?
Education is critically, fundamentally important. Our deep dive showed that knowledge deficits often fuel those biases and resistance. If developers, for example, don't understand sustainable building measures or find the info too complex, they won't adopt them. So investing strategically in knowledge creation R&D, but equally in effective knowledge transfer and retention within organizations is key. Training programs, knowledge bases, mentorship. Promoting workforce diversity also helps bring varied perspectives. And ensuring educational curricula covers sustainable innovation and emerging tech can significantly reduce psychological barriers, fostering higher acceptance and smoother integration. It's about building a more informed, adaptable society from the ground up, preparing you for these tools. And it's important to grasp that these disruptions, economic, social, democratic, legal, psychological, rarely happen in isolation. They converge, creating new, complex phenomena. Surveillance is a prime example. Digital surveillance, state or commercial, is deeply interwoven with every disruption we've discussed.
You mean like surveillance capitalism, where our data is the product?
Precisely. Shoshana Zuboff describes surveillance capitalism as a new economic order. Corporations exploit human experience, clicks, likes, location searches as raw material, used to predict and subtly modify our behavior, then traded as behavioral futures. This creates a massive knowledge asymmetry. They know everything about us. We know little about their data use. This directly impacts democratic debates through personalized political ads, like in the Cambridge Analytica scandal, shaping what you see, believe, do. Globally, surveillance is also a major dividing line between powers. The USA focuses more on commercial surveillance, with tech giants benefiting while having some constitutional checks on state surveillance. China employs a more authoritarian behavioral control model, like its social credit system, integrating vast data into state control. The EU stands in contrast, prioritizing personal data as a fundamental right via GDPR, creates global tension.
And it's vital for defense, too.
Absolutely. Surveillance tech is vital for defense, intelligence, espionage, raising ongoing ethical debates about monitoring limits in peace and conflict, balancing security and liberty. And in law, debates around COVID location tracking highlighted the challenge, regulating pervasive tech while upholding citizens' rights, a challenge society grapples with daily. #TakeTagOutro.
This deep dive, it's really shown us that technological disruption is far more than just a buzzword, isn't it? It's a dynamic, ever-present force, constantly reshaping our economies, our defense, democracy, social norms, identities, laws. It touches every single facet of your life, whether you realize it or not.
And what's crucial to grasp is that the benefits and risks, they're often unevenly distributed. The key challenge isn't merely about the quantity of jobs gained or lost long-term, but about fostering a future where humans and machines collaborate effectively, where productivity gains are shared more equitably, and we make good decisions while safeguarding human autonomy at every level, from our individual choices right up to the global stage.
Ultimately, our path in this increasingly technology-dependent world, it will be decided not by the tech itself, but by the social, political, economic choices we make right now. Understanding these complex, interconnected disruptions, and maybe even more importantly, those deep psychological biases underpinning our reactions that empowers us, not just to anticipate change, but to actively participate in shaping a more resilient, adaptable, and, well, more human future.
Technology at its core isn't just a set of inert tools, it's really a mirror, reflecting and amplifying our human responses, our fears, our drive for progress, our enduring desire for connection and understanding in a rapidly changing world. It's not just what technology does to us, it's what we choose to do with it, and crucially, how we feel about it, that truly defines its ultimate impact.